CLNSRadio.com, the home of Internet Sports Talk Radio.
All right, well, we're going to skip the cool intro tonight. I guess Nick's having issues with his connection down at his new place after bragging about it all day long. You know, got a lot of good stuff to talk about here. New news here when it comes to Jerry Sandusky. It's sick. I mean, you and I didn't get a chance to discuss it much, but that is absolutely disgusting what's going on down there. We got, Major League Baseball trying to institute a dress code for their media. There's a ridiculous high school football story up here in Massachusetts. A lot of NBA news and rumors. We got a lot on our plate tonight, man.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, Sandusky being arrested again today. The story's coming out that his wife had basically heard screams of distress and help and did nothing about it, is along the lines of what the coach from Syracuse's wife went through, and yet they did nothing about it. And in my mind, they're in a situation where they should be held accountable for not doing anything about it. It's just, a disgust situation that they would sit back and listen to those cries for help and allow these kids to be tormented the way they were.
It's especially disturbing for us because we're both parents. We both have kids, and again, I'm not going to make any light of this situation. I'm not going to say that these victims are lying or anything like that. The only thing is, it just kind of makes you wonder why they don't speak up sooner, because if this happened years ago, they could have prevented more children, more kids going through the same thing. That's the only thing that bothers me a little bit about some of the story. But again, if everything that they're saying is true, this guy is absolutely disgusting. And as far as I'm concerned, throw him right in with the general population. We all know how they view child molesters and perverts in jail. So
the thing that's disturbing for me is, would these women, their wives, have reacted the same way if it was a 12, 13, or 14-year-old girl that was being molested rather than a boy? It's almost like it was okay to them because it was a boy and not a girl. I think that they would have acted differently if it was a female down being molested rather than a male.
That's a good question. That really is. It's a legitimate point. I'd like to think it wouldn't matter, if they allowed this stuff to go on. You never know. Sad to say, you never know what's going on in people's heads when it comes to that stuff. Again, why these kids didn't say something to their families, their parents, the police, it's beyond me. And look at what it's done just to Penn State overall. One of the greatest football coaches of all time got fired because he didn't do enough, I guess, is what they said. He spoke to the proper channels. He did everything legally he was supposed to, but because he didn't, basically try and prevent it, now Joe Paterno's out of a job.
Well, he deserves to be out of a job. Not only did he not try and prevent it, but in my mind, he covered it up by not making sure that man never stepped on that campus again with another child. I think it was something where he should have done a heck of a lot more than what he did. Basically what he did was he covered his ass legally, but, morally, he certainly didn't do what he should have done, and he paid a great price for it, and I think he deserved it.
The majority of his career coaching, he may not have known anything about it. He really could have just not known anything, and then when he reported it, all he's going to be remembered for now is this scandal where one of his assistant coaches was a child molesting pervert, as opposed to Joe Paterno, greatest college football coach that ever lived. So, again, this guy, the ramifications.
If it wasn't for Joe Paterno's age, he could sit out a year or two and he'd get another job. I'm sure he would get another chance, but because of his age, he's done, and this is how he's going to be remembered.
Yeah, and again, which is sad because, he may have felt that he had done enough, and I know he gets a lot of support, but the backlash on Joe Paterno itself, it definitely makes you question what this guy was actually thinking. Again, and I think you, me, and everybody else that we know walking this earth would agree that what this guy did is disgusting, and it's good that it's being brought to light so that it doesn't happen again, but at the same time it's sad that this guy's getting all this publicity. Throw him in with the general population in the prison and let those guys, perform their own jail justice on the guy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I certainly that's most likely not going to happen. He'll be put in solitary confinement for the rest of his life. He'll die in jail. And that's no situation that, is good for anybody. He's certainly going to have a lot of time by himself to think about what he did and why he did it, and he's certainly somebody who's sick and needs to get some type of help immediately. Hopefully at some point he'll be able to come to the conclusion that what he did was wrong, admit it, and accept his punishment as it should be given to him. But that remains to be seen.
Lastly for me, we've all seen how scandals have rocked the world, and people end up quote unquote growing from it. But I'll tell you now, I really hope this guy doesn't ever profit from this. I hope there's no book story. I hope there's no movie deal. I hope this guy doesn't have an opportunity to profit from this at all. I hope nobody tries to make an attempt to profit from this at all. It's disgusting.
Well, I don't see how he can. He's going to be in jail for a long time. He's going to die in jail at this point. So I think once he's sentenced and he's in jail, it'll be something that'll move along quickly, and everyone's going to try and rebuild the Penn State name in that institution.
What's interesting is I had a conversation with our friend John Amici, Scotty, your friend.
Oh boy.
And he is actually going to Penn State later in January to meet with the school. Basically what he does now is mentors or kind of counsels organizations such as universities for crisis management when it comes to discrimination, and not just to homosexuality or an issue, perversion such as Sandusky, but anything. And in this instance, former NBA player John Amici is going to be traveling to PSU to meet with the university. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I know he voiced his opinion. They actually asked him about it on, I think it was Outside the Lines or one of those kinds of shows, and he was upset about it.
Yeah,
Nick, on a personal note, you're getting awful close to him. Is there anything you want to share at all?
He had a lot of very complimentary complimentive things to say about you, Tim. So
no, I like the guy.
Right back to you.
I like the guy, but I'll tell you what, when I have a chance to take a shot at somebody, I want to take a shot at him.
Well, and honestly,
I agree with what he stands for. I think he's a stand-up guy, and I certainly commend what he's doing.
Honestly, Tim and Scotty, the conversation was to secure him as a guest. He will be a guest on the Celtics Late Night Show, I believe, on January 9th. And he did request, Tim, that you be on air with him during that interview. He would like to talk with you. So that's something for the listeners to stay tuned to. Anyway, I don't know what you've discussed so far, Scotty, so you continue to take the lead host here while I boot up the agenda, and then we'll get rolling, guys. We got a lot on slate here tonight.
Yeah, look, the more I talk about Sandusky, the more I want to vomit in my mouth, so we'll just move on from that. It's a sad story. I want to bring up something else. It's another disturbing story as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a growing trend with everything that's going wrong in this country when it comes to athletics. Up here in New England, in Massachusetts specifically, there was a Massachusetts high school state championship game, Cathedral High, and what happened was their quarterback he broke free, was running down the field at about the 10, 15-yard line. He raised his hand in triumph going into the end zone, but because of the way that they want their kids to act on the field, that was flagged for an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for taunting or some crap, and that call cost them the game. So instead of them getting the touchdown and winning the game, the next play, an interception was thrown. The other team ran the clock out. It disgusts me, the fact that you want these kids to go out there and play with absolutely no emotion, not have fun. These are high school kids here, okay? They watch the NFL, they watch college, they see how much fun it is. I mean, they're not out there grabbing Sharpies, signing stuff, throwing it to the fans. They're not out there thumping their chest. This is like a Catholic school. This is a school where they're taught to do everything, the right way. And this guy was excited because he was running the game-winning touchdown in the end zone, and for the ref to throw the flag, basically saying he was trying to show up his opponents, I can't be more disgusted with the way that these kids lost this game. It's funny. It really is funny to me that I would find a story that would give me a reason to bash the refs. It's not the NBA, but I mean this is so disgusting to me in every way. You're basically telling these kids, don't have fun.
It seems to me that that rule was most likely put in place to prohibit the kids from touchdown celebrations in the end zone after the touchdown was scored. But obviously here in this case, the flag was thrown before the touchdown was actually scored, so therefore the touchdown's negated.
Tim, what was that? What the hell was what was that, Tim? I thought you vomited in the mic there for a minute. Too many Scotches or what? Go ahead.
I don't know what that was. I didn't even hear it.
It might have been Scotty. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. Somebody maybe had some beans for dinner. I don't know. Let's share.
No, Tim, looking at the rule, they're saying that an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty will be enforced at the spot of the foul.
So therefore, it was before the touchdown was scored, so it negated the touchdown, and then penalized them. And then, of course, they have the turnover, which, just ends the game and kills them. So, the spirit of the rule, I'm sure, maybe can be rewritten so this doesn't, affect future games like that. But, an official throws a flag and enforces the rules the way it's written in the rule book, and, it is what it is.
Yeah, see, again, there are rules that you have to follow by the letter of the law, but again, when you guys, Tim, I don't know what level you started at as far as officiating, but don't they also have you guys go by the spirit of the rule? That way that there's no controversy here, because I have it says, I guess they use college football officials.
Rules are written to be enforced the way they're written, and when you start going by the spirit of the rule, which happens a lot in the NBA, people start enforcing the rules based on what their perception of it should be rather than what the league perception of it should be. And the bottom line is, you're trained to enforce the rules as how they're written in the rule book. So how that was written in the rule book is the way that referee enforced it.
Well, here it is.
And at that level, shouldn't they be really following the rules to the letter of the law?
Well, here's the rule, guys. It says if the ball is alive when the player makes a taunting gesture, then the penalty is enforced at the spot of the foul. But he wasn't taunting. I don't know if you guys have seen the video. It's all over the internet. ESPN had it on their show today with Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. The kid doesn't taunt. Basically, the kid is excited because he's scoring a game-winning. He doesn't turn around to point. He doesn't, point it to heavens. He just, gives like a quick fist pump, and that's it. That's not taunting. I don't give a damn what league you're playing in. The fact that they're expecting these kids to play without any kind of emotion, he didn't. And the thing was, when he got in the end zone, he ran, turned, and gave the ball to the referee. He didn't spike it. There was no group celebration in the end zone. He did what he's supposed to do. He did, the classy thing, and he didn't show anybody up. And the fact that this single call cost this team a state championship, it's absolutely disgusting to me. I can't believe that the Massachusetts, Interscholastic Athletic Association is being as pompous as they are about this, basically trying to tell everybody to get over it, because it's ridiculous. If I can find the video for you guys, I will.
Number one, are they supporting what the referee did? And to me, a taunt is a situation where you're directing a gesture towards somebody, and if that wasn't the case, I certainly wouldn't agree with it. But it all depends on whether they certainly backed up the referee or not, and it seems like in this case they did.
Yeah, there was absolutely no taunting, no gestures of taunting, nothing. He didn't yell it, he didn't turn around and trash talk and run in. He just raised his fist, out of excitement because he was scoring the game-winning touchdown, and then the refs absolutely stole this game from that team. It's high school sports. You got to remember, these are still kids. You can't take the fun out of it, or it's going to end up with, the people are going to view it as like the NFL with, the no fun league, where you don't want these kids to have fun playing a game. Everybody that complains about professional athletes saying, "Oh, they're playing a kids game," well, then let the kids play a kids game. Don't ruin it.
Yeah, you know what, Scotty? I agree with you. I believe that it's not worth risking a state championship or whatever for. But at the same level, I think to a certain extent, we have to teach young people that taunting isn't acceptable, and that, especially we're talking about, with the NBA, I think there's a little bit of too much showboating that goes on. NFL, I know they call it the no fun league and whatever else, but there's a certain point where we've got to influence young people at an early age. I'm not saying I agreed with the play. I didn't see it. I didn't see the call. I just did clip the YouTube video into the chat room so that people chatting could take a look at it. But, I guess everybody check it out and be a judge of their own. We'll definitely tweet out the link to that video after the show, and also put it in in with the YouTube clip. But while we're on football, guys, and not to change the subject, talking NFL now, Packers 12-0. Could this team go undefeated?
I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that they can go undefeated. I mean, if you look at who they have left, Oakland, Kansas City, Chicago, Detroit, I think the only one that can really give them the big test is at the end of the year, if they're completely healthy, is Detroit. I mean, Chicago's banged up, Kansas City is what it is, and Oakland is what it is. I mean, Oakland can give them a little bit of a run this week, but being the fact that the game's in Green and how well they play, I just see if any team has a chance at doing it, running the table in the regular season, this team has just got the confidence to do it. They're just, gelling on all cylinders.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty, we know from the Patriots in the past, doesn't mean a lock for a Super Bowl, but the Packers are looking to repeat. Do you think that they're in good position?
Packers are the unquestioned number one team in the NFL, no doubt. But let me tell you, that game that they played at the Meadowlands last week, it looked like the officials had an agenda of making sure that Green Bay remained undefeated, because if you actually watch that game from start to finish, some of the calls in that game were absolutely horrendous. With the Calvin Johnson rule in effect from when you have to finish the catch all the way through to the end, Greg Jennings bobbled the ball, didn't have possession of it, got knocked out by the Giants' defensive back, and it was still called the touchdown even though he never fully had possession. And then the Giants' tight end Jake Ballard comes down with the ball in the end zone, where a still shot came out later on that night or maybe early the next morning showing it was a touchdown, and the officials said he was out of bounds. I mean, there were a lot of questionable calls that helped Green Bay stay undefeated in that game. But all that aside, Green Bay's they're going to do it. They're going to go 16-0. Depending on who makes it and whatnot, it's all going to determine whether or not they can go 16-0. I know there's a few people that up in this neck of the woods that were actually hoping that Green Bay would be 18-0, and then the Patriots would be the team that they play in the Super Bowl, just to see if the Patriots can get some kind of redemption, knocking an undefeated team, off the perch if they can, or to have, from the other side, seeing Green Bay and their fans be able to brag, that's how it's done, that's how you finish 19-0. We could do it, you guys couldn't.
Yeah, definitely bragging rights. I mean, and when you're looking at the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, man, I mean, the numbers this guy's putting up, he's putting up, Hall of Fame type quarterback numbers. Obviously, Rodgers is doing it here. Do you consider him in the same category right now with the all-time best quarterbacks? I mean, with the numbers he's putting up right now, he's ahead of them.
Oh, you know what? I do. I think that he's easily the best quarterback in the NFL right now. He's barely entering his prime. It would have been nicer to see what he could have done if he didn't have to sit behind Brett Favre's indecisive ass for the first 3 years. But I definitely think as long as he stays healthy and there are no issues whatsoever with injuries, he's easily going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's a phenomenal quarterback, phenomenal athlete. He's basically indefensible. And, I can see it. But right now, I think he's head and shoulders above everybody else in the NFL with, guys like Breeze, a healthy Peyton Manning, and then Brady coming in at a distant second, third, fourth, whatever rank you want to put those guys at.
Obviously, he's having probably one of the best years of any quarterback in the history of the NFL, and if he can finish as strong as he has started, it's just an unbelievable year. But more importantly, can you imagine the ass that this guy's getting? I mean, if I don't. I understand this guy's a single guy. I mean, can you imagine how many women are just throwing himself at his?
Scotty, we got to get Donaghy late. I mean, this guy. Where's Chaz Bono?
Yeah, just what I need.
Hosted by a former NBA official, the crazy Tim Donaghy. If you didn't know he was nuts already, you'll find out by listening to this show every week. Good stuff, funny. Also hosted by the other crazy guy, the Scotsman, the ref basher, and myself, kind of filling in here and I guess playing the referee role between you guys. So it's fun stuff. We're talking generalized sports now, but our backbone here is NBA. And the NBA is back. We have a lot of topics to discuss this evening. Before we get to free agency, before Tim Donaghy breaks down the schedule and tells us, who this benefits, who David Stern has it out for, the schedule makers and everything else, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come right back. We're also going to open the call line throughout this entire, I guess we have about 60 minutes left to the broadcast. We'll open the call line throughout, and the call-in number is toll-free. It's 877-784-56 3047. So get your calls in. We're going to come right back after this commercial break, and we are going to talk NBA hoops, baby.
This is Avery Bradley of the Boston Celtics, and you are listening to CLNS Radio.
All right, Mike, here's the situation. You're walking into Fenway. You have your iPod on. What song is playing on your iPod?
Not even a question. It's the Dropkick Murphys. Shipping up to Boston. That song personifies what I'm all about. The city, the building. We hate the Yankees. Let's do this.
I figure you're going Dancing Queen by ABBA. I know you really like that song. You just completely threw a curveball at me.
I will kill a dance floor too, Tyler.
I believe it, and you can hear us, maybe even through your iPod, Mike T, every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern on CLNSRadio.com.
This is Luke Arangoni, and you're listening to CLNS Radio.
CelticsBlog.com, the online community for Celtics fans. Blogging since 2004, Jeff Clark is a diehard for life. Hey, did I mention it's also family friendly and there's tons of ways to interact through blog comments, forums, chat, and now the new fan posts and fan shots. It's all part of what's going on at the rapidly expanding SB Nation community of blogs. Hey, and guess what? Celtics Stuff Live simulcast from Celtics Blog every Sunday night. CelticsBlog.com. It's got all the latest updates and thoughtful commentary on everything from the Celtics and the NBA. So check it out at CelticsBlog.com.
CLNSRadio.com, the home of Internet Sports Talk Radio.
This is Darrell Summers, and you are listening to CLNS Radio, the home of online sports talk radio.
What? All right, Hoops fans, welcome back to Technically Speaking right here live on CLNSRadio.com. We are back live right here on CLNSRadio.com. We're going to talk some hoops, and there is a lot to talk about. Let's start real quick with gossip. Tim, were you tuning into ESPN today? Because all over ESPN was LeBron's mug in his new, I think he's running for president right now with this PR campaign that he's been putting on. Did you happen to catch any of that today?
You know, I did, and that's exactly what it is. He's got somebody feeding him what to say in a structured environment, you know, going through some of these interviews to try and change his image, and, you know, now, his big thing he's working on is post moves with Hakeem, but, you know, I don't know how many points Hakeem scored in his career, but half of them he got away with traveling on the baseline with that turnaround, take 4 or 5 steps, skip, hop, and a jump, and shoot it in. So if he's taking really any lessons from him, he may have some trouble this year, more than we thought.
How many times did you call traveling on Hakeem?
Probably none, because, you know, at that point it wasn't a point of emphasis, and everybody traveled. But as the years went on, you know, they tried to, you know, crack down on it because of the way the media said that it was let go in the league, and then, you know, when you did crack down on it, everybody looked at you like you had 12 heads.
Yeah, right. Scotty, LeBron really ditching the villain, the bad boy reputation. He says it hurts his play last year quite a bit. Are you buying this?
Yeah, this guy's such a fruitcake. I mean, come on. For him to actually sit there and act like he didn't know this was going to happen, he's, you know, either one of the dumbest guys on earth or he's just flat out lying. And he embraced it last year. And for him to sit there and say,
a commercial about it.
For him to sit there and say that it hurts his feelings, you know, boo freaking who. You did this to yourself. You turned your back on, you know, the team that they built themselves around you and did everything you asked them to try and get a title, and you walked out on them so you can go down South Beach and sip mojitos and play with, you know, like a Bosch and Dwayne Wade. You know, it's just so ridiculous. Every time I see this guy, I just want to keep punching him in his face.
Probably went down there to get away from his baby's mama, you know, so he can go out there and get some extra squeezes on the side. She left her in Cleveland. He's down in Miami living it up.
Yeah, and his mamas maybe have moved to Boston with Delonte West. You know what really?
I wouldn't doubt it.
I wouldn't doubt it. But what really annoys me here, guys, is LeBron. He never does anything halfway. I mean, last season, of course, he did the decision and put us all through that annoying agony. Then he comes out with the villainous, persona. He returns to Cleveland. He's throwing the chalk in the air. He puts out commercials where he's making fun of Magic Johnson, wearing the cowboy hat and the black coat. And now all of a sudden he's taking sensitivity courses, and he's a gentleman, and he's got feelings. He's got a heart. I do believe that, and I was watching PTI tonight, and they made this point too, and I think it was a good point. If LeBron can just be himself, possibly he could then, come through in the clutch, come through in the fourth quarter. He's always trying to play these personas that we don't know who the hell this guy actually is. It seems that the guy that is, or the men or women that are advising him are who he is at that moment.
How about you haven't won a championship, you look like an idiot in the playoffs last year again, just shut up and let your play do the talking for you, and then when you get a championship under your belt, you can do these things that you want to do. You can try to get out there and be all over the TV, which obviously he enjoys.
Scotty, he wins a title. Miami wins a title this season. Does the public forgive LeBron? Can he then stop these type of PR campaigns that he goes out and does, and is all forgiven and forgotten, and he's back to being the next Michael Jordan?
No, absolutely not. I think it'd actually be the opposite effect, just the simple fact that it would prove that he still would need to ride Dwayne Wade's coattails and have two other top 15 players around him to win. So basically, I think he's doomed for the rest of his career. And to be honest, I don't think they're ever going to win a championship. I just don't think that. Wow. I don't think they have the mental fortitude or the testicular fortitude in them to win a championship.
Well, I know you're going to disagree there, so go ahead.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. I think that you look at them adding one more piece to that puzzle. I think they can get it done with the pieces they have in place right now. But you look at them adding a center like Nene, I think that they're just going to be unstoppable. At that point, I think that they have the pieces in place to certainly get through the regular season. If they can get through Chicago again, I think that they're going to have the ability with the experience that they went through last year to win this thing, and I don't think there's going to be any doubt in anybody's mind once they get it done that he's well on his way at the age that he's at to, not only have one championship but to have several.
There's no way, because first off, they can't afford anybody right now. Their salary cap is just as screwed up as everybody else's that has a few max or close to max contracts on it. They can't afford to bring in anybody. I mean, they're going to have to amnesty Mike Miller just to get out from his, I think it's $5.7 million a year deal for the next couple of years. They're hurting. They can't bring in anybody right now. They're like a lot of teams, and people, and obviously I'm not calling Tim a moron, but there are a lot of people out there that think this is like fantasy basketball. All these deals with these players, they forget that there's a certain financial structure that has to be followed when you want to sign guys, and I think Miami's another team that has only the mid-level, and they do.
And that's the question: is a guy like Nene or even Battier, who's been talking to Miami, are they going to sign for $3 million? Because that's all they got right now.
Well, who knows? What they can work out and move pieces around. Look at what LA did when they got Shaquille O'Neal. Look at what LA did when they got Pau Gasol. There's certain things that you can do, and certain teams have the flexibility to do things that other teams don't have. Obviously, what's going on in the past. So you never know what type of dynasty they want built, and if they can work things out and move some cap room around, you know what? You never know.
And we're sitting here, we're talking about cap space and Miami. We are obviously in a new labor deal here. The negotiations are done. They're completed. How does the new labor deal affect free agency?
Obviously, I think it remains to be seen as to, they put the finishing touches on this thing. But, obviously the goal is to slow down the pace of free agency, slow down the fact that players like LeBron James can move from one team to the next and still have a very beneficial contract. So I think it's about slowing down the salaries and slowing down the movement, to be honest with you.
We just talked about the mini-mid. That's a really good point right there.
I agree with Tim that they want to stop people from trying to create these super teams, which I think in the next couple of years it's just going to be basically impossible to do this. Again,
they should have put in a clause. Excuse me. They should have put in a clause where a guy like Rasheed Wallace, your buddy Tim, is not still getting paid 2 years after retiring. He's still on the Boston Celtics books. That's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, how is that? Because how is that?
Because he's still on the books because he didn't and will not officially retire with the league office. So until he does that, the Celtics are forced to pay him. The Celtics are still paying guys, and I'm sure other teams are.
Oh, why is that? Because he's out on a disability, or how can they still be paying him if he's not playing?
Well, he's resigned from his position. He's retired as a member of the Boston Celtics, but he's not retired with the NBA. So he's not officially retired, and he will not officially retire until his contract expires, which I think is this season, Scotty.
Yeah, I believe it's a season. And
it was my understanding you had to play to be paid. So that is very strange to me.
No, because the Celtics have been screwed by this before. They got screwed when Reggie Lewis passed away.
Right.
And Stern and his goons said, well, you're still going to have to get stuck with paying his salary for the remainder of it. And then the same thing with our good old buddy there, Jin Baker, who violated his contract. And he still had to get paid.
Paying it to the player, or just counting against their cap?
I believe it's counting against their. No, I believe it's being paid to the player.
Vin Baker got paid about 5 years or so after his deal ran out.
As a matter of fact, Tim, if you think about it, and I know we're talking, I don't want to turn this into a complete Celtic show, but if we're Larry Bird retired in '92. He got paid until 95 because he signed a contract extension in 92. He actually worked for the team as some sort of training capacity or consultant because he was too responsible, quote unquote, to get paid for doing nothing. So yes, the player still gets paid directly, and that's a major issue that the NBA.
I think the player gets paid if they go out on some type of injury. I don't think they get paid if they just want to say, I don't want to play anymore.
Okay, well then Rasheed Wallace goes out on a back injury.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's understandable. We can't say that. Sure, it is.
Well, they should be paid disability, but it shouldn't work against the cap.
The player signed. He basically, if he doesn't retire. The Celtics put him in that position to, be against their cap for that amount of time. I not that I agree with it, but we can't see here on radio that, they're being paid when they just walk away and retire and don't play. They're being paid because they went out on some type of disability.
But it's working against the cap, and that's wrong. All right, guys, let's move forward. We're looking at free agency. Who are the best players in the free agency class, in your opinion? And let's start with Mr. Donaghy. Who are the best players right now available for teams to sign?
I think when you talk about some of these guys that are out there, you got to look at Nene. You got to look at what Tyson Chandler did for the Dallas Mavericks last year. And, Marc Gasol, he had a great playoff run also last year. So you're looking at three big men that can come in and change the dynamics of a team. So
yeah, I agree with you, Tim. If I'm looking at the free agents this year, obviously they don't have the big sexy name like Dwight Howard like next year's crop does. But if I'm looking at these guys, if I'm a team that needs a center or is a big man away, I'm going after Marc Gasol and then Nene. I mean, these guys are they're both still young. Gasol's basically entering the prime of his career. Nene's in the prime of his career. There are certain teams in the NBA that they get these guys and they're, already borderline contenders. These are the kind of guys that can put them over the top. And it's, obviously for my team, I wish that we could get one of these guys, but, we're not going to be able to afford it. But, those are definitely the two cream of the crop guys. I don't know if I should be worried about this or not, but apparently the Lakers have made a huge splash, or they're going to go sign Jason Kapono. So I think the whole world needs to watch out now. They got a formidable backup there for Kobe Bryant.
Jason Kapono, I thought he was basically a guy that hasn't played for a couple of years. He was just a guy that was traded around the league to get rid of his salary cap for the last couple of years. So
he is. I was just, taking another stab at the Lakers because it's what I like to do.
I got you. I got my fourth guy on the list, Chris Humphries, just because I'm hoping Kim Kardashian comes back and maybe, she shows up in the stands and ends up in Boston, and we take a look at her ass and big babies and see whose is bigger.
Scotty, you didn't even laugh, man. What the hell?
It's just that whole Kardashian thing. I mean, Lamar Odom's part of their family. I can't take him seriously.
Guys, we got a caller on the line.
How about Lamar Odom with the nail the stars on the back of his head? Who does he think he's, Mike Tyson?
He's certainly not.
Oh my God!
Soft than ice cream. All right, we got Chad on the line, guys. We're going to bring him live. He's got a question about Major League Baseball. It's a little off topic, but we're going to bring him on board. Chad, welcome to Technically Speaking with Tim Donaghy and Mike Munger, the Scotsman. You're live.
Yeah, I appreciate it, fellas, for having me. I got a question for you about Albert Pujols. I know you guys are talking basketball right now and free agents, and Albert Pujols is probably one of the biggest free agents that you have out there. I think it seems like getting ready to overspend for him. What do you think about signing a 31, 32-year-old baseball player in the National League who can't even be a DH for that 10-year, $220 million type contract that the Cardinals are talking about?
Let's start with the Scotsman. Go ahead.
Oh, that's that's funny because I've actually talked about this a couple of times with a couple buddies of mine. Albert Pujols. I mean, let's just first off state the obvious. He is the best player in baseball, and even if he follows the normal rate of decline that players do at the age he's going to be by the time his contract runs out, he's going to go down as arguably the greatest baseball player of all time or offensive player of all time as far as breaking records. He should own every single record if he doesn't have any injuries. But I can definitely see the skepticism in signing a guy that, I mean, I guess maybe they're thinking that because he plays first base and physically he'll be able to hold up because he's not playing what you would think would be a demanding position in the infield. They could probably get away with it, but again, I can see the skepticism. If it was an American League team, I could see it. I agree with Chad that you could throw him at DH. He doesn't have to play in the field as much. But again, I think that St. Louis is willing to take that risk because he's a first baseman, and the guy's just basically a workout machine. He keeps himself in phenomenal shape, and they think it's worth the risk having a guy that could potentially break the home run record, the RBI record, be a Triple Crown winner. They want to have him in their uniform, and they figure that they're looking at the marketing and promoting dollars down the line when this guy does all that.
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely insane to sign a guy that is that age for a 10-year contract at that type of million. I mean, that can cripple a franchise for years. I think you look at a lot of the teams, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They're known for getting rid of players at the right time in their career, not signing them to those deals when they're aging. Other than this year, they've been very successful at maintaining that program to where they've been able to stay on top for many, many years in the past. So I just think it's a situation that can just absolutely cripple a franchise to give somebody like that so much money over such a long period of time to where you're stuck with them. It's just like giving Vince Carter or Gilbert Arenas the contracts that they've been given in the NBA. It kills a franchise.
Chad, we thank you for your call, and before we let you go, do you have any closing thoughts for former NBA official Tim Donaghy and the Scotsman?
No, I appreciate you guys. I enjoy listening to your show, and I'll be tuning in each time that you guys have another show. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, fellas.
Thank you, Chad.
See you, Chad.
Good stuff, guys. That was Chad. The Clear wants to call in. It's toll-free, 877-784-3047. Yes, we are toll-free now. Scotty, I got to get used to that call number. I keep wanting to go back to the old one. So, again, toll-free, 877-784-3047. Good call from Chad, talking a little MLB. But we're going to switch on back to hoops right now. And, of course, dominating the free agency talk is Chris Paul and Dwight Howard. Let's start with Chris Paul. We talked a bit about it on last week's episode of Technically Speaking. We want to get the callers' opinions, but before we go back to the call lines, many teams are looking at Chris Paul. The Lakers are on a mad hunt for both Paul and Dwight Howard. Let's start with Tim, and you guys tell me, where is this guy going to land?
It remains to be seen where he's going to land. If I was New Orleans, I'd let him rot there. I mean, to allow these players to dictate where they want to go and who they want to sign with, to me, I think ruins the league. I mean, obviously he wants to end up in Los Angeles or New York, and if he ends up in New York, you look at another team that has another situation where they have a big three, so to speak. So you got the Knicks, you got the Bulls, and you got the Heat. I mean, can anybody else in the next 5 or 6 years, make it to the NBA Finals other than those three teams? I think it's absolutely ridiculous the way it's set up to where these guys can dictate to where they want to go.
I mean, first off, let's just, I know that there's people out there, especially the NBA and ESPN, the talking heads, that would love to see Chris Paul in New York again. Not financially possible. They have 2 max contract guys in Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony. Chauncey Billups is on the books for $14 million, and they traded away all of their valuable assets that they could use in a trade to get Carmelo Anthony. You're not going to get Chris Paul for, Ronnie Turiaf and Landry Fields and an aging Chauncey Billups when he doesn't want to go to a team that isn't a contender. So the Knicks are completely 100% out of the mix right now when it comes to getting Chris Paul. The Lakers, all this trash talk about how they want to get Howard and Chris Paul, it's not going to happen because everybody that talks about dealing with the Lakers, Andrew Bynum is the centerpiece around any trade that's going to happen. So if you get Chris Paul for Andrew Bynum and Pau Gasol or Andrew Bynum and Lamar Odom, you don't have enough to get Dwight Howard or vice versa. Whoever you trade Andrew Bynum to, you're not going to have enough to bring in the other guy. And again, I think that if the Lakers are dumb enough to trade away Bynum and Gasol or Bynum and Odom, that takes away 2/3 of their biggest strengths the last few years, which has been their size, to get a point guard in here that, I mean, again, yeah, he's phenomenal, but that's not going to help you in the playoffs when you have, either Pau Gasol or Lamar Odom as your only big man. They wouldn't have any big man worth a damn. Derek Carricker's not going to get it done. Let's just be real here. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I agree with Tim that these guys dictating where they want to go, it's so disgusting, and I just don't see it happening right now. I mean, I think the Clippers have the most intriguing deal to offer them, but I don't think they want to get rid of Eric Gordon. The Warriors already said they're not going to get rid of Stephon Curry to do it. I don't know if New Orleans would want Monte Ellis, on a note that would, on a deal that would upset me more than anybody knows. I don't see why Boston would want to give up what they're rumored to be giving up to get Chris Paul. I think what's going to happen is they're going to end up losing him in free agency or trading him at the trade deadline, throughout halfway throughout the season.
Tim, why would Danny Ainge ever consider signing Chris Paul when he's blatantly said he would not sign an extension with the Celtics, and yet Danny Ainge has still gone on to say he'd still take him?
Well, I mean, I think the bottom line is the way the collective bargaining agreement is probably going to be set up, and I'm not privy to everything that's been put in it, is that, it's going to be hard for him to go to a team that he wants to go to and make the money that he's going to be able to make if he stays with the team that owns his rights. And I think that's what, Danny Ainge is banking on. It's obvious that, other than that, there's absolutely no logical reason to why he would give somebody like Chris Paul the opportunity to come in and play just 1 year and get rid of Rondo. I mean, it's absolutely insane. But I tell you, one move that I could see helping improve L.A. if in fact David West is healthy is somehow getting New Orleans to do a sign and trade with the Lakers and have the Lakers give up Gasol for David West. I think he's just a much tougher player on both ends of the floor, which would give the Lakers a toughness getting rid of Gasol that would help them.
To piggyback off of what Tim said here, I think the reasoning behind Chris Paul saying that he wouldn't want to sign an extension if he gets traded is because at the end of the year, he'd be able to get more. I think the difference in value of the contract would be, over $20 million, where he'd be able to sign a 5-year deal, 5-year max deal, as opposed to if he gets traded, only being able to sign a 4-year deal instead of hitting free agency. So I think that's why he was saying he wouldn't sign an extension anywhere. But again,
and plus with Paul, who the hell wants to live in Boston? I mean, come on, let's not kid ourselves.
Oh, Jesus, here we go.
Yeah, but there are a lot worse cities.
Come on, I agree,
but I
mean,
NBA cities.
But Boston, come on.
Boston's not that bad. There are a lot worse NBA cities. Listen, I think Danny Ainge in the back of his head is thinking Chris Paul comes to Boston. First of all, let's put it this way. Danny Ainge has got to go out and shop the market value of Rajon Rondo. That's what he's doing in all this. To put it mildly, he's going out, shopping what we can get back. What level is Rajon Rondo on right now? Is he on the Chris Paul tier? And could they go man for man there as far as the trade is concerned? I think that's number one. Number two, however...
Wait. If you're the Boston Celtics, why would you get rid of Rondo instead of getting rid of Pierce or Ray Allen?
Because Ray Allen and Pierce, the value is not there for. Number one, you got a budding career with Rondo. You got a guy who's just entering his prime. You got 4 years on a $9 million a year or $11 million a year contract. The contract is extremely friendly. And on top
why
of that,
get rid of him? Why not keep him?
because he's more attractive to another team who could possibly want that contract and the value. Therefore, the Celtics can go out and get a guy like Chris Paul. Hey, he's not going to sign an extension. Well, Danny Ainge believes in the back of his head after playing a season with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and possibly bringing a championship back to Boston, the guy's going to resign.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the thinking would be. But again, I mean, and we could discuss this with every team, but, real quick on Boston, so it's not a Celtics-dominated show. Yep. You look at a team like Boston with the way the schedule's set up. With the way the schedule's set up, the back-to-backs, the back-to-back-to-back, all the condensed schedule, Boston isn't Chris Paul away from winning a championship. Let's just be real. The supposed upgrade you would get from from Rondo to Chris Paul isn't going to be the difference in whether or not Boston wins the title, especially not if you trade 2 first-rounders, Jeff Green,
Scotsman,
and something else.
A title win. This year, I mean, how many teams would you put ahead of the Boston Celtics as everything stands right now in rankings?
I think if I'm being realistic this year with the short...
Realistic, honestly, I know how you are with the Giants and the Celtics. Realistically, let's put all our feelings aside.
I think if I'm looking at teams that I think in a shortened season are going to be legitimate contenders, I think San Antonio's back in the mix just because they've done it before. Popovich knows how to rest his guys. I think another older team, the other 2 other older teams, Boston and LA, have a better shot. Oklahoma City, because they are younger, but they do have cohesiveness. They have basically their whole team back. I think New York is an absolute pretender. I think Miami's going to take a step back because they didn't gel the way that everybody thought they would. I think Chicago's
going to take a step back this year.
I don't think.
Let me tell you something. Miami is going to have at least 12 to 15 more wins than Boston.
But that doesn't mean that it's going to translate into playoff success. I think Chicago, if they don't make any stupid trades and they can sign a legitimate shooting guard, I think they could potentially run the table in the East as far as number one seed. Dallas too. You can't disrespect Dallas. So I think there's a very short list of teams here that are contenders in a condensed season. I do believe Boston is one of them, and I just think that.
But on the list, but on the list of the top 10, they got to be around 7 or 8.
Oh, I'd say probably 4 or 5.
I'd say 4 or 5. I don't think
4 or 5. All right, let's just go through it real quick. We got Miami,
right?
No. Okay.
Yes.
We got Chicago.
Chicago.
Right.
Yep.
What else we got? We got San Antonio.
Boston's better than San Antonio.
We got the Lakers.
No.
We got the Mavericks.
Yes.
Okay.
Who else do we have? That puts them at 6 right now.
Doesn't.
Oh, I'd say.
I'm even going to put the Knicks ahead of them.
Jesus.
Christmas Day. I'm telling you right now that the Knicks are going to beat the Boston Celtics by about 15 because they're going to be gasping for air going up and down the court.
Tim, you're trying to convince yourself here. It's amusing.
He loves the Knicks. He just loves the Knicks. He loves the Knicks and he loves Miami. I'm going to tell you right now, Miami's ahead of Boston. No doubt, Scotty. I'm sorry to tell you. Chicago's ahead of Boston. L.A. is ahead of Boston. Dallas is ahead of Boston.
No, I think L.A. is actually older than we are.
I don't even know
they
that
got absolutely destroyed.
San Antonio's ahead of Boston.
Why would you say that? That makes no sense.
I just think that they have a quality core group of guys.
We don't.
If you're going to put up Tim Duncan and Parker, okay, and Ginobili, their big 3 against Garnett, Ray Allen, and who do you want, Paul Pierce or Rondo? I'm going with this. I'm going with the Spurs.
I tell you right now, in all due respect to Tim Duncan, you could take Garnett out and put Jermaine O'Neal in there with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce, and we would still have the better 3.
Oh my God!
Wait, say that again, Scotty.
If you took Garnett out of our big 3 against San Antonio's 3 with Parker, Ginobili, and Duncan, you could put Jermaine O'Neal in there with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and we would still have the edge because.
Well, yeah, because I'm going to tell you, Parker's probably not going to play. He's going to be injured. Ginobili's probably not going to play. He's going to be injured. So basically, it's Duncan who's going to be injured too. I mean, you could say the same thing about the Celtics, but put them all, make them all healthy. Put 3 on 3. The Celtics beat the Spurs. The Spurs are not ahead of Boston. I don't know that I put Dallas ahead of Boston, Scotty.
I tell you what, and this is why the free agency period is going to be so huge here, because if Dallas can't re-sign Tyson Chandler, they're not going to win.
Hey sports fans, Tim Donaghy here from the Sports Connection. I know the NBA better than anybody. That's why you need to call 1-800-308-9003 for today's free pick.
Thanks a lot, Timmy B. It's been a great year. Thanks to you. Guys, this is Danny B. Make sure you pick up that phone like Tim said. Give us a call for today's free pick at 1-800-308-9003. or visit us at DannyBeersandBoy.info.
This is your boy Delonte West, and you're listening to CLNS Radio.
So, Pete Paul, who's your favorite to win the NBA title next season?
Come on, Gelso. Is that a serious question? The big three coming back, Rondo's healthy. It's obviously going to be the Boston Celtics.
Wow, you really do wear green goggles, don't you?
Well, Nick, I may, but thanks to the expanded broadcast schedule here on CLNS Radio, I've been able to expand my horizons outside of the color green.
That is true, Brandon. Here at CLNS Radio, we don't just broadcast Boston Celtics talk. We have programs such as The Breakdown with Dave and Audley, Off the Court with Calvin Chamberlain and Luciana Celestine, Technically Speaking with former NBA official Tim Donaghy and Mike Munger, the Scotsman, NBA for Life, and the new Mike T.
Check out the broadcast schedule at www.clnsradio.com and listen in live for all your sport talk news.
With all this general NBA programming, this helps people like you see more than just the color green.
This is CLNS Radio, the home of Internet Sports Talk Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome back.
We were actually talking about what teams, in our minds, would basically be ahead of the Boston Celtics in the rankings if the season would start today.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And you were trying to say the Knicks and the Spurs were ahead of them. That's right. Yeah, look, I'd say the Celtics right now in the preseason rankings should be, like around 4th or 5th as far as favorites for the title. Again, they have the veterans. They have a core group of guys that have been playing together for a while. Again, so much of this stuff is going to depend on who goes where in the free agency. Again, as far as Dallas goes, if they don't get Tyson Chandler back, they're going to be hurting because that was their defensive anchor. He kind of gave them a swagger and a toughness that they didn't have before he got there. You don't want to see them relying on Brendan Haywood or some scrub center try and get them back to the finals. So it's definitely be interesting. A lot of Boston fans I talk to want to bring the band back together, bring back Jeff Green, Delonte, even Glenn Davis a little bit, just to keep the cohesiveness there, and then that way they won't have to worry about trying to integrate too many new players in here. That's what's going to matter. That's what's going to determine who does well going forward.
I tell you what, there's one team that I left off the list that I'm kind of shocked that I left off that I think could actually win the NBA championship this year. Can you think
Oklahoma
about what
City.
That might be?
Oklahoma City.
Absolutely. Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City, and I can tell you right now, I can't say that they are not ahead of the Boston Celtics. So you may be right. Boston may be 6. It may go, and in no particular order, L.A., Miami, Dallas, OKC, and the Bulls. So
Bulls,
the Celtics
Spurs,
are 6.
Knicks.
No, why do you keep putting it? You're trying to piss us off here.
We'll put Boston right along with the Portland Trail Blazers and Grizzlies.
Jesus.
At least your Philadelphia 76ers are there too, man. Let me tell you.
Oh, Christ, they're way out of it.
Is that your team, Tim? Obviously, yes.
No. I mean, I would like to see if I had a choice of a team doing well and who I like to see win a championship. I think Mark Cuban's a great guy. I like to see Dallas do it again. I like to see Scott Brooks and the Oklahoma City Thunder do it. And just because I got to deal with you two knuckleheads down the road, I'm going to even root for the Boston Celtics.
No, I like that. But, Tim, let me ask you this. Growing up, were you a Sixers guy?
Absolutely. I mean, Doug Collis, Mo Cheeks, Andrew Toney, the Boston Strangler. I mean, how can we forget Andrew Toney,
And he doesn't ever get enough credit. He never gets enough credit, Andrew Toney.
Moses Malone, I can remember him throwing the ball up against the rim and the backboard just because so he could build up his rebounding stats. He missed layup after layup just so he could get the ball back.
How about Chocolate Thunder?
No doubt about it. Chocolate
Thunder. I'm going to throw one more at
Caldwell Jones. The Lovetron, Chocolate Thunder.
Lovetron.
we know him and Danny B were tight. He was.
I know, the refrigerator.
Snorting the cocaine off the top of the refrigerator back in the day.
So, all right, guys, let's move on from free agency. We're getting towards the end of this, what should have been our most stress-free show, because the internet connection works. Scotty lost power. Skype needed me to do an update. Hey, we're working through it, though. I want to talk a little bit about some of these teams that are in desperate need of big men, and one of them that comes to mind is the Houston Rockets. Now that Yao Ming has finally called it a day, It's over. Who's a good fit for the Rockets right now?
The reports I've been reading are that they're big-time players and trying to get Nene. He's a Western Conference guy, and he would fit well with them. It just all depends on how much money they're willing to spend, but I think Nene is the guy that they've been rumored to be targeting.
Tim, what do you think of Nene? A guy like Nene would...
No doubt about it. When you talk about Nene, I mean, he's been hurt a little bit in the past, but he's a quality big man that can hit that jump shot, that is a big, strong, powerful guy that can defend any other center in the league, can rebound, can run the floor. He's a guy that if somebody like Houston, can jump on and get, I mean, they're a playoff team. Right away, they're in the playoffs, I think. Even with, the coach that probably can do nothing but teach a couple low post moves, I think they can get in there. I think it was a absolute farce that they got rid of Adelman.
All right, guys. Now, and I know where you're going with that too, you son of a bitch. You want to pick on my boy Kevin McHale, and you know what? We're going to get to that in a minute. But guys, the call lines just blew up. 402, I believe, is our boy Chad. He's come back because he must have heard something that aggravated him. Chad, you're back live on Technically Speaking. Throw your question at Tim and Scotty. It's NBA related.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking to you, I forgot you guys are talking about teams that need the big man. If the Celtics a terrible trade last year when they got rid of the only big man they actually have, and that big old O'Neal experiment failed. What are your thoughts about that? Talking about a team that needs a big man, I'd say Celtics need a big man in a big way.
No doubt about it. I would say, Chad, you're absolutely right. The O'Neal experiment seemed to be a failure. Well, it was. Shaq was a failure. I think Jermaine can give us give the Celtics some quality minutes this year. He's obviously shown that he could defend, he could block shots, even later in his career, and supposedly he played in the Vegas League and played fairly well. I'm not going to bring up the P name, Scotty, so I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, it brings up a good point. If I'm the Celtics right now, obviously they don't have a lot of money to spend. They can't go out and get Chandler and Nene without trying to get creative here, unless they can convince those guys to take a smaller deal. So if I'm the Celtics, I'm looking at guys like Reggie Evans. I know they've reached out to him. They've already reached out to Glenn Davis again. Aaron Gray, Kwame Brown.
Like Glenn Davis.
Yeah. I mean, guys that, aren't top-level centers, but again...
Chad Bono.
Chad, stop making her a man.
Jesus.
I mean, stop making her... Wait a minute. I'm confused. Good, Scotty, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Guys like that are, what you would just call serviceable guys that come in and play minutes here, because Jermaine O'Neal, in limited minutes, he's still a defensive force. He does not... He doesn't need to come in and lay at the scoreboard, but you get guys in there that add a toughness and a physicality to the lineup. Again, I mean, Reggie Evans, I believe, is the guy that his rebounding and toughness would definitely add a lot to the Celtics. Again, Kwame Brown, I know he's got a lot of shooters there. Yeah. And then Aaron Gray is the guy that I'd really like to see them go after. They just have enough depth at the center position so that we have guys to fill that void. And again, I mean, we have talent at the other positions. Jeff Green backing up Paul Pierce. The rookie Juwan Johnson backing up Kevin Garnett, a 4-year starter, all-defensive player at Purdue, Big Ten Player of the Year at Purdue. So we have some good youth and talent to back up the positions there at the 4. But the 5, we need to get some big bodies in there.
Some big bodies. I mean, the Celtics have been in dire need of rebounding. And let's not forget, Scotty, and we need to move on to our next caller. We want to touch on the schedule real quick.
Let's touch on that schedule because it's 12/7/2011, 9:14 p.m. I'm going to tell you right now, I believe that the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks are a pick 'em on Christmas Day, and the Knicks will win that game by 10. I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to play this back, after it happens on New Year's Day.
Say that again, Tim.
I'm telling you right now that the Knicks are going to win that game on Christmas Day by 10.
Well, I mean, it's good every now and then that we let people like Tim have an opinion, no matter how wrong it is. The fact is, the Knicks still can't play defense. They still have 2 guys.
They don't need to because the Celtics aren't going to be able to put up 85 points on the board.
Yeah, but then if we can only put up 85, then the Knicks are going to put up 80, and you're going to see they can get 79 of it from the 2 superstars there. They don't have enough supporting cast around them. Chauncey Billups is going to get absolutely eaten alive by Rajon Rondo and Avery Bradley, and it's just going to be it's going to be ugly for New York on Christmas Day.
All right, you know what? We got area code 916 on the line. We're going to take their question quickly. then Tim, I know we're on a time schedule here, but we got to break down the schedule because there are some really peculiar setups here by the league with the schedule. So area code 916, quickly give us your question for Mr. Donaghy and the Scotsman, and then we're going to move on to breaking down the schedule and wrap episode 26 of Technically Speaking. 916, you are live.
Oh, hey guys, it's Jerry from Sterlingsville.
We're glad to have you. What do you got for us?
I just want to talk about obviously the free agency with Mr. Chris Paul and Dwight Howard. Obviously, you see a lot of rumors on ESPN about him possibly going to the Clippers as a trade, or maybe the Warriors, either for Eric Gordon or Mr. Stephen Curry. I don't think that's going to happen. He's probably going to go to New York. Also, I want to get your opinion on KYRIE Evans. Oh, boy.
All right. Area code 916. I think you're from Sacramento?
That's got to be a Sacramento guy.
I was going to say. Yeah, listen, Tim, address those questions quickly, and we're going to move on to the schedule, and we're going to ditch this show.
You know, I think Scotty said it best. It's going to be very hard for Chris Paul to end up in New York. It's just they're cap strapped, and unless he's going to take an enormous pay cut and stay the whole year in New Orleans, he's not going to end up in New York. So it remains to see, with the cap situation where a lot of these guys are going to unfold. But you never know. I mean, you never thought the Big Three was going to end up in Miami the way they did. So.
There's only one Big Three in the NBA, and that's in Boston. Tim, didn't you referee the Lakers-Sacramento series that was in question back in the mid-2000s?
No, I think that's a big misconception that, I refereed that game and that Game 6 to where, the three referees basically gave the game to the Lakers so that they could force a Game 7. And, I had nothing to do with that, but I was well aware of it, that it was going to take place ahead of time.
All right, guys. Let's Sacramento, thanks for calling in. Let's quickly run down the schedule. I want to start with what looks like a very, very, very difficult schedule for the Dallas Mavericks. Tim, does Commissioner Stern have it in for Mark Cuban?
It remains to be seen. I think when they do that computer generated schedule, they just throw it together as quickly as possible. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it. I think that they just want to get and fit in as many games as possible, and how they turn out, they turn out. I mean, they try to keep it. Yeah,
even on the holidays?
On the holidays, they certainly, picked certain teams that they want on that's going to draw national media attention. There's no secret to that, but I think with everything else, it's just a situation where, it's computer generated, and they try and do it as fair as possible because they know that the media and certain teams are going to bitch and complain if one team or another is put at a major, major disadvantage.
Lakers, Celtics, Heat, Scotty, they all meet at least twice. That's a good thing for NBA fans. Let's look real quick. The Lakers themselves, they start the season very unfriendly. They're playing 6 games in 8 nights. Then they'll be playing their one and only set of back-to-back in the first 3 games of the season. Scotty, quickly, Lakers, is that favorable to them, or do you think it should have been pushed off at the end of the season?
The fact that they have their back-to-back at the beginning, as a Celtics fan, I love it because it could potentially give them 1 or 2 losses, and the fact that they have to do it without Bynum because, as everybody remembers, he's suspended for the first 5 games of the year because of that cheap shot that he took on J.J. Barea in the playoffs. So it's going to be tough. They're going to have to win some games there early in the season without Bynum. But, I mean, let's be real. Everybody has a tough schedule this year with the condensed season, the back-to-backs, and the back-to-back-to-backs. No one actually has what you could call an easy schedule. Some teams have it tougher than others, but no one actually has an easy schedule. But it's going to be interesting to see how some of these older teams hold up with the back-to-back-to-backs, especially early in the year with very limited training camp and free agency period.
All right, NBA fans, hoops fans, sports fans, you just listened to episode 26 of Technically Speaking with former NBA official Tim Donaghy and the Scotsman and myself, Nick Gelso. Thanks for joining us. Tune in next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Again, Tim, we are talking about some scheduling changes, so stay tuned to CLNS Radio for updates as to what days this show is going to broadcast once basketball actually starts getting played after Christmas Day. Again, follow CLNS Radio on Twitter and Facebook. Don't forget to follow Tim Donaghy on Facebook, who interacts with all his followers. So if you have a question for Mr. Donaghy, of course, follow him at Facebook.com. Just search Tim Donaghy. There's only one guy with that name, I think, probably out there, Tim.
Only one guy that wants it, and that's me, brother.
And Scotty, you're on Facebook as well under Mike Bird. That's as in Larry Bird, Mike Bird Munger. You can get me on Facebook too at Nick Gelso. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. Technically speaking, Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m. on CLNS Radio. Good night, all. Scotty?